The curious thing is, I never agreed that evening. But I never refused either. And somehow, that single hesitation altered the course of everything. They promised it would be effortless. They assured me I wouldn't need to make any decisions. Simply arrive, simply witness, simply believe. No one prepared me for how swiftly observation transforms into emotion, or how unsettling it becomes when you discover someone has been studying you all along. Before I unfold the rest of this night, take a second to hit like and subscribe. It really does help more than you know. And if you're drawn into stories like this, I want you here for every one of them. Also tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Are you in a small town where the evenings fall slow and gentle, or in a city where the lights never quite go dark? My name is Margot. For most of my existence, I confused control with protection. From the outside, my life appeared immaculate, the kind of existence others describe with admiration, occasionally with longing. A peaceful neighborhood where mornings carried the scent of dew and predictability. A home so meticulously maintained it seemed untouched by disorder. A marriage that operated like precision machinery, steady, refined, remarkably preserved. And at the heart of it all stood my husband, Adrian. Adrian never demanded authority. He never raised his voice. He never debated. He simply determined where we resided, whom we entertained, what kind of woman I was meant to become. And gradually, across years, I stopped noticing when my own thoughts dissolved into silence. It wasn't coercion. It was convenience. It was simplicity. It was the quiet liberation of never having to choose. But convenience carries an unexpected consequence. It numbs you. Somewhere beneath my perfectly orchestrated existence, something restless stirred within me. A tension I couldn't name. A weight behind my chest that accumulated silently, day after day. I'd sense it when I lingered too long at the bedroom window. When conversations recycled themselves. When laughter felt practiced rather than genuine. I wasn't miserable. But I wasn't truly living either. Before I continue, understand this clearly. What happened next isn't imagination, and it isn't confession either. It's a moment where authority shifts so quietly. You don't recognize you've crossed a threshold until you're already standing beyond it. Remain with me until the conclusion. Follow this channel. Activate notifications, because narratives like this deserve patience. And I guarantee you've never encountered one unfold quite this way. It started with an evening meal that felt unusual, even before I comprehended why. The table was arranged with extraordinary attention, the illumination gentler. Adrian moved with measured composure, pouring wine as though every second carried significance. When he finally regarded me, his gaze lingered, not lovingly, but analytically, as if he was examining a version of me I hadn't encountered yet. "I require your assistance with something," he stated. Not an inquiry, a declaration. "What kind of assistance?" I asked, already sensing something constrict in my chest. "An occasion," he answered. "A historic venue, established connections." He offered no further explanation. He never required it. "You'll be extraordinary," he added, almost offhandedly. That word, extraordinary, haunted me for days. As the evening approached, I found myself doing something I hadn't attempted in years. I stood before my wardrobe, not selecting what was suitable, but what felt authentic. My fingers traced fabrics I'd neglected far too long. I chose a gown that neither concealed me nor announced me. It simply acknowledged me. When I examined my reflection, something unfamiliar gazed back. Not defiance, consciousness. The building that evening seemed to exist beyond time. Ornate details softened by decades, lighting dim enough to welcome secrets without demanding them. I arrived unaccompanied, my footsteps resonating just slightly too prominently as I crossed the stone floor. Inside, conversation adjusted when I entered. Not halted, not stared, merely recalibrated. There were 5 gentlemen. They weren't forceful. They weren't boisterous. Their attention wasn't careless. It was purposeful, as if I was the concluding element placed into an arrangement already finished. One smiled gradually. Another simply observed. A third spoke my name as though he'd rehearsed it. I should have felt uneasy. Instead, I felt recognized. Not touched, not cornered. Recognized. Their words were deliberate. Their distance calculated. Every pause felt significant. They didn't hurry me because they didn't need to. The anticipation accomplished everything for them. I sensed my breathing shift, my awareness intensify. And that frightened me, because part of me appreciated it. Then reality crashed back, too rapidly, too sharply. I retreated, suddenly conscious of everything I was endangering. The existence I'd preserved by never questioning it. The vows I'd maintained by never testing myself. That's when I noticed Adrian positioned behind, observing, not interfering. There was no astonishment in his expression, no fury, only a quiet certainty that made my stomach plummet. I approached him, each step weightier than the previous. When I reached him, he didn't apologize. He didn't clarify. He smiled. You were magnificent, he declared. The words struck harder than any accusation ever could. His touch, familiar, measured, felt transformed now, charged, intentional. And when he leaned nearer, his voice lowered just enough to make it feel intimate. This was never about them, he murmured. The journey home was soundless. Street lamps streaked past the windows. My hands trembled in my lap. I felt exposed, not because of what occurred, but because of how effortlessly it had been permitted. Finally, I spoke. Why? Why arrange it? Why observe? Why allow me to stand there unprotected? He maintained his focus on the road. Because I've always understood, he replied calmly. You were awaiting permission, not from them, from yourself. The reality settled heavily between us. Not everything claimed is stolen. Some things are surrendered quietly when you're exhausted from restraining them. That evening didn't conclude when we reached home. That's the deception I told myself initially. I imagined once the door sealed behind us, once the familiar walls enclosed me again, whatever had transpired would dissolve into something I could secure away. A peculiar memory, a moment of vulnerability, something unnamed. But the house felt altered. Too hushed, too aware. Adrian placed his keys on the counter with deliberate composure, the soft sound resonating louder than it should have. I remained near the entrance, uncertain where to position myself, suddenly doubtful of my own territory. The atmosphere between us felt stretched thin, fragile, charged, perilous. You don't need to speak tonight, he said evenly, removing his jacket. Not unless you desire to. That sentence alone revealed everything. This wasn't concluded. It had scarcely commenced. I navigated through the house slowly, as if every movement required consent. The reflection in the corridor mirror caught my attention, and I paused. I barely recognized the woman gazing back at me, not because she appeared different, but because she appeared awakened in a manner I'd never permitted myself to be before. When I finally spoke, my voice felt foreign in my own ears. You orchestrated it, I said quietly. Every element. Adrian didn't deny it. I anticipated it, he corrected. There's a distinction. I turned to confront him. You permitted them to regard me that way. You stood there and witnessed. Yes, he stated simply. The word landed heavily. And you didn't intervene. I continued. No, he responded, equally composed. Silence occupied the space between us. Thick, purposeful? Because you didn't want me to, he concluded. The conviction in his voice unsettled me more than any accusation could have. I wanted to dispute it, to reject it, but the truth pressed too intimately to disregard. I hadn't requested assistance. I hadn't requested rescue. I had remained. That realization followed me into slumber, into dreams that felt sharper than reality, and into the morning light that didn't provide the comfort I anticipated. Over the following days, nothing visibly transformed. Adrian attended work. I maintained my routines. Meals were consumed, conversations exchanged. But beneath it all, something had shifted. I observed things I'd previously overlooked. The manner Adrian studied me when he assumed I wasn't aware. Not possessively, not enviously, but inquisitively, like he was witnessing a metamorphosis he'd already predicted. One evening, as I stood by the window again, the identical window I'd gazed through for years, he joined me. You've been quieter? He observed. I'm contemplating, I replied. Dangerous, he remarked faintly, almost entertained. I turned toward him. Is that what you intended? What I intended, he said slowly, was honesty from you, from yourself. And what occurs now? I asked. He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he stepped closer, not invading my space, just enough to make his presence impossible to disregard. Now, he said, you determine whether that was a moment or a doorway. The question lingered long after he departed. The invitation materialized 3 evenings later. Not physical, not documented, just a quiet mention during dinner. They inquired about you, Adrian said as if discussing the weather. My pulse responded before my thoughts did. Who? The same individuals, he replied. They were impressed. I didn't respond immediately. And what did you tell them? I asked carefully. That you don't belong to anyone, he said. Not even me. I laughed softly, more from disbelief than amusement. Do you genuinely believe that? He met my gaze. I believe you've spent years pretending you did. That evening, sleep didn't arrive easily. I replayed everything. The atmosphere of that room, the attention without pressure, the freedom wrapped in risk. It wasn't desire in the conventional sense. It was permission. Permission to exist without a manuscript. By morning, I understood something had already been determined. The second gathering was smaller, quieter, more deliberate. This time I wasn't escorted inside. I entered independently. The looks I received weren't surprised. They were expectant, familiar in a manner that made my breath catch. No one hurried me. No one spoke immediately. They didn't need to. I sensed the shift instantly, not around me, within me, the absence of fear where it once resided, the clarity of decision replacing uncertainty. And then I noticed something else. Adrian wasn't observing from the shadows this time. He was positioned beside me, not directing, not controlling. Witnessing. For the first time, I understood the distinction. What unfolded that evening cannot be explained through actions alone. It existed in glances sustained too long, in words selected carefully, in silences heavy with significance. Nothing exceeded a boundary, and when we finally departed, something permanent had settled between us. In the vehicle, Adrian spoke quietly. "You were different? So were you," I replied. He smiled faintly. "Good." Weeks elapsed. Life didn't collapse. It reorganized itself. I spoke more, chose more, questioned things I once accepted without examination. Adrian didn't resist it. If anything, he seemed relieved. One evening, as we sat together in the dim glow of our living room, I asked the question that had been waiting patiently in my chest. "Was this always your intention?" He considered me for a lengthy moment. "No," he said finally, "but I understood one thing." "What?" "That the woman you were becoming would never forgive herself if she didn't discover who she truly was." I looked down at my hands, steady now, confident. "And if I hadn't stepped through that doorway?" I asked. He met my gaze. "Then I would have cherished you exactly the same," he said. "But I would have understood. You were still waiting." Now when I stand at that identical window, the vista hasn't transformed, but I have. Not everything that feels dangerous is destructive. Not everything that resembles surrender is weakness. Sometimes it's the moment you finally cease pretending you don't desire more. To you, my cherished listeners, if you ever presented her something you secretly believed she'd never accept, what would you experience the instant she looked into your eyes and whispered yes? Share your thoughts below. I genuinely want to hear them. If this narrative touched something profound within you, express that appreciation. Share it with someone special who needs to experience this intensity. And ensure you're following with notifications enabled, because the next story might be the one that transforms everything for you. Thank you for being here with me.